I realized that I wanted to go into preventative medicine because I had a few health challenges, and I just realized that there's a whole nother world in prevention and just lifestyle medicine.
Nutritionist, mother, researcher, and educator, Nimisha's life passion is for women's health. She is a functional medicine nutritionist, Ayurvedic counsellor, yoga Nidra meditation teacher, and former tech founder. In Nimisha's private practice, Moon Cycle Nutrition, she specialises in fertility, pregnancy, and postpartum care with an emphasis on the mind, body, and soul. Nimisha combines functional medicine nutrition with ancient Ayurvedic principles. She is also a health and wellness board member and a speaker. In this episode, we talk about how Nimisha was expected to become a medical doctor, but the conventional system didn't resonate with her, and she took her own path to discovering her passion for holistic women's health. You're listening to Going Conscious, the podcast where we discover new ways to live a more conscious life of fulfillment and freedom. Each week, I speak with entrepreneurs, academics, and changemakers who have made big transformations, left unfulfilling lives behind, and found meaning in this new world where purpose drives success. Let's get inspired to live our unique journeys to the fullest. Let's explore the impact we want to make and deepen our understanding of ourselves, each other, and this beautiful world around us. Live your freedom. I'm your host, Nikki Trott. In this episode, we talk about how Nimisha was one of few female tech founders in gaming 12 years ago, her journey to preventative medicine, combining her expertise to advise femtech companies, the importance of listening to your body's intuition, living an alcohol-free life, why your period is the 5th vital sign for your health, and how to take care of your cycle. Now, let's go to our conversation. Nimisha, hello and welcome to Going Conscious.
Hi, Nikki. Thanks for having me on your space.
Thank you for being here. I am very much looking forward to hearing about your journey, and I'm so fascinated by how you have transitioned from being a tech founder into your passion for women's health and how you bring together different ancient principles. So I'd love to hear about your journey and how you got from there to where you are today.
Yes, I know. It's a very surprising thing now that when people find out that I used to be a tech founder. So I've always wanted to be in health, and I was studying to go off to medical school. I have an undergraduate in pre-med psychobiology, 2 majors, and I thought I'd be a pediatrician. And then somewhere in college, I realized that I wanted to go into preventative medicine because I had a few health challenges, and I just realized that there's a whole nother world in prevention and just lifestyle medicine. And so that is where I started studying Ayurvedic medicine and started practicing it also while I was still working in clinical research at UCLA, a top research university in California. And, because I was very much into the science of things as well as like holistic living and being. And I eventually moved back to the San Francisco Bay Area to be closer to my family. I was born and raised in the San Francisco Bay Area, and then that is when I met my now husband, and he is what you would think of like a typical SF engineer, like the Silicon Valley, San Francisco, like startup founder, one startup after the other. And so when we got married, he was just closing out another startup. So he was like, what should we do? And at that point, gaming was really big. And at this point, I was, I had a really great nutrition blog, a blog about cooking and farmers market and living well. And this is back when blogging was also really, really big. But also, at the same time, Facebook games were really taking off. And so my husband was like, I want to do a game about this. And I got interested, and we ended up being co-founders and started a gaming company. And my ultimate goal was to create health games to motivate people to get healthier, because I saw the potential in that. I think I was just a little bit too early, and it was a very interesting space because 13 years ago, there were not very many young women founders, and there weren't very many young women founders in technology, especially in the gaming space. I think there were like 5 other women that I knew in a sea of like thousands and thousands of men. And it was a very harsh place to be as a woman because just the patriarchy and the grind. And, even when I would go into investor meetings, they would talk to my husband and not me, even though I was the CEO of the gaming company. And so it was such an interesting experience for me. And I eventually left it because it was making me sick. It was making me very unhappy, and I just didn't like the direction of the gaming space, and it felt really out of alignment for me. So then I left it, and I went back into working with. I went back into studying nutrition further, and just I started working with clients one-on-one and doing workshops. And really, that's where my passion is, because I can see true change. And so it was a complete, in so many ways, I felt like when I was working in tech, it felt like I went off road. But the beautiful thing is now I do work in tech again, but more as an advisor for femtech companies, because the space has changed. Now there are so many women founders and companies being created with integrity and with female needs in mind. And so it's really wonderful that now I can use all my expertise of like being a former founder into helping companies grow now.
Beautiful. I love hearing how you have this red thread through everything you've done, from tech founding to coaching people on their nutrition. It's all around helping people to live more healthily and really being focused on that preventative side. And rather than taking care of sick, you're taking care of health.
Yes, yes. And I think it always came down to listening to my intuition and just kind of following it.
What's that like to you? Intuition is one of my favorite topics and hugely important in my life. What does listening to your intuition mean to you?
I think intuition is a little bit of confidence also. And so, I think your body just knows. Your body knows when you feel safe and when you don't feel safe, and when there's a voice kind of guiding you, like, turn left instead of turn right. Sometimes when you're just wandering the streets and trying to find something fun to do. And also, intuition is having confidence, because I think we're all intuitive beings, but we're not confident enough to follow it. And so, really trusting yourself. And for me, that has been a long journey, really just trusting my decisions and doing what I want to do. And, there are a few points in my life where intuition was really loud, and I did listen, like when I decided that I'm not going to go to medical school. And as soon as I did that, I found an Ayurvedic school, which had really changed my life, and it was really my calling. And another point is motherhood, when my intuition has been so strong. And every time I hadn't listened to my intuition when it came to like just simple things in motherhood and the way I wanted to raise my son, is I would really regret it, because my intuition was right, and I gave in to listening to some online person or, just outside influences. And that it just, at the end of the day, wasn't a right decision for me. And so I always come back to intuition. And I think your intuition is also keyed into your health and what you eat and put into your body, because your body will give you the signals, but if it's being numbed out, you won't be able to listen to those signals.
Yes, and absolutely. Intuition has been so important in my journey as well. And I've talked about it quite a lot here on Going Conscious. And it's interesting how you also relate it to health and what we put in our bodies and what we eat, and that we can numb it out and not listen. So how do we connect with our intuition and know that we're in tune with it and listening to it when it comes to the body and health?
Yeah, so I call what are numbing foods, and these numbing foods are anything processed foods, sugars, alcohol, caffeine, and certain drugs, and those are all numbing to our system, and I think they dull our reactions, and they dull our intuition, the ability to from our gut to communicate to our brain and to our heart. And once we start eliminating those foods and those numbing agents from our body will clear out. One, it will become super healthy, right? Like if we stopped eating sugars like cookies and brownies and chips and processed foods like deli meats or, anything that's been just ultra processed, white bread, we're just going to be healthier. Our heart is going to be healthier. Our lungs, our digestion, and that all feeds into our intuition, and it's going to clear up more space within our body for us to be able to follow that. And our whole body is connected. From our gut, our brain, our reproductive organs. And if we can take care of our gut health, the rest of our body will be super healthy. And it just makes us able to listen to the whispers of our body better.
The whispers of our body. I love that. Yes. And of course, it makes so much sense that the things that we put into our body are numbing our connection. On the one hand, it sounds so simple and obvious. And on the other hand, I think it's something that we can be blissfully unaware of. And it's not something that we are commonly told about in our society at all. And so much of the narrative around eating and what you put in your body is about physical health and about weight, but not about the connection that you feel with your intuition and your true self. And I certainly have personally experienced what you're describing. It's hard to completely separate, because through my spiritual journey and my Saturn return when I was 29, I became fully vegan. I became much more healthy with my diet and started meditating and started breath work, and so many things happened at once. I couldn't really separate them. But a little bit later, then I think a couple of years later, I then quit alcohol because actually it was to do with my gut health, where I was having reactions to certain foods. And at first I thought it was a gluten intolerance. I actually didn't eat gluten for 5 years until I then started getting these reactions with just a swelling. I would look pregnant and have stomach pains after certain foods that definitely didn't have gluten. So I went to a holistic doctor who was recommended to me, and they tested my stool for the bacteria and said that I was missing loads of the bacteria I needed in my gut. And when I then went through this 3-month process of a very, very restricted diet, very specific fruits, vegetables, nuts, there were only a short list of things that I could eat. And, it was challenging. I even traveled around Japan during that time. Sometimes I was boiling sweet potatoes and spinach in the kettle in a hotel room. But, I managed to stick to it, and it included no alcohol. And I could talk for a while about how that process in general completely changed how I felt. And of course, only since I experienced that could I really understand myself, the connection between the brain and the gut, and how our gut is our second brain. And I've been able to eat anything since. It really fixed what I had. And when I'd gone to the conventional doctors, they'd told me I just needed to take some drugs before I ate. And I don't put drugs into my body, and I was not willing to do that. And so I was so grateful to find this holistic way. But what was really interesting for me was stopping drinking alcohol for 3 months afterwards. I thought,
Mhm.
I don't want to start drinking again. And before, I had drunk alcohol every week. I'm highly sociable. I was partying a lot and not taking the party drugs that many people around me were taking. I never did. And so alcohol was the one thing that I did, but I really felt so much power and clarity. It just changed my whole connection with myself and my worldview. And I feel so much more sensitive to energy and able to understand my path and able to be empowered to step away from the external expectations that have been drilled into all of us for so long.
Mhm. Yes, I resonate with that, and that's amazing. I want to congratulate you for being able to stick to a strict diet. I've been working as a nutritionist for over 10 years, and it's not easy, especially when you're trying and or traveling, sorry. And
Yes.
yeah, that is not easy. And also the alcohol. I live the alcohol-free life, and I enjoy it so much because before I would, the next day I would be so dehydrated. You could just feel it in the body, right? Even after two glasses of wine, and my face would be red and I would just feel icky. And as I got older, my body actually stopped tolerating alcohol. And we can get into that. Like alcohol, it increases estrogen. And, when you have excess estrogen in your body, it's like PMSing all the time. It's like, and it can really, really mess up your hormones and your liver health. And if you don't have a healthy gut, your body will not be able to support alcohol. You need to be, going to the bathroom daily, pooping daily to get rid of that extra estrogen. And when you're drinking alcohol, you're really not supporting your body in doing its function properly. I'm not anti-alcohol, but I do think people drink way too much, and life is so much more fun without alcohol, because you're there, you're fully present, and you're able to feel and tap into yourself and into other people also, right? You're able to read people better and communicate better. And we've started using alcohol as a gateway to not feel and to not be fully present. And that's not always true. But what I've definitely seen in this pandemic is that we've made it okay to drink alcohol because we don't want to feel all the feelings that the pandemic is bringing up. And I just read or I just saw the title, like, in a newspaper saying, "Does America have a drinking problem?" And I was like, yes, yes.
Absolutely. Yeah, I completely agree with you that life is more fun without alcohol. The only experiences that I've missed out on are leaving a party a couple of hours earlier because I realized that the DJ had
Mhm.
got rubbish and it wasn't getting better and it was the good timer was over and let's go to bed. And that was definitely not something I regretted the next day. I really feel life is more fun without alcohol as well. And the drinking problem thing is so interesting because I don't want this to sound judgmental, but what I realized was I had a view of what an alcohol problem was, and it's someone on the streets or someone drinking, who's drinking constantly, or it's someone who's hiding alcohol at home and drinking every day, and really, just can't cope with life because of alcohol. But what I realized when I stopped drinking was that actually I think that me and everyone I know
Mhm.
pretty much has or had an alcohol problem because if you say don't drink for 6 months, people are gonna freak out. And
Mhm.
no, how will I enjoy life? Whereas
Mhm.
if you say, hey, don't eat tomatoes for 6 months, it's like, oh, I might miss them a bit, but I could probably handle it. So, well, isn't that addiction and reliance? And
Mhm.
so many situations I've been in personally and with friends and with work colleagues where you couldn't comprehend going out for a night out without alcohol.
Mhm.
It would
Mhm.
be, what's the point of going? And I just found that really interesting to see, well, where do we draw the line? Where is this then a problem? Because I think it really is something that our whole society is relying on. And, people can use it in their own ways. And it's not that all usage of it is wrong. But it's just, I found for me growing up in London, in my experience and circumstances, that it was very unconscious and leading to a lot of numbing, like you say, and just a lot of distance from yourself.
Mhm. Exactly. And it's marketing, right? Like the ads that they spend on alcohol, making alcohol look so glamorous, and especially so I'm a mother, and wine, I've never been marketed for wine as I have been since I've become a mother. And it's like, oh, you just, to deal with the kids, you drink a glass of rosé or something. And it's really ridiculous. And I don't judge. I really don't, because a lot of people are unconscious about it and falling into the marketing. But with all food, with everything, there's, if you see a lot of it and it's being glamorized, there's a lot of marketing dollars behind it. And so you have to take everything with a grain of salt and kind of peel back the layers. And one of the things I always ask my clients is like, how is it working for you right now? Forget the past, forget, what you want it to be, but how is it truly working for you? And how is your body really responding to it? And then, just asking some of those deeper questions can really change the way you view that food or that substance.
That's an amazing, simple, powerful question. I love it because we do have so many stories, associations, marketing dollars in our
Hmm.
subconscious. And absolutely, this is my thing. This is my
Hmm.
treat. This is what I do when I want to feel relaxed. This is how yeah, absolutely. And I love that. Just how does this serve me today? And that gives us a whole fresh perspective where we can maybe let go of some of those stories and make certain changes and not allow our identity to be tied to something that we put into ourselves, because that's also something I think about a lot. And as a vegan, I just said it, but I'm
Hmm.
not a vegan, I'm a
Hmm.
human who eats plants.
Hmm.
We take so much of these different things, whether it's food or alcohol or whatever, as part of our own identity, and then we become so attached to it. Is something that's something you've experienced as well?
Yes, we do get attached to these stories, right? Like, oh, like I'm a vegan, I'm paleo, I'm keto. As a nutritionist, I see it all the time, and I think that's very dangerous, also because, I mean, in a way, we are what we eat, what we assimilate, but that is not the end all be all, and it's very dangerous. I say because I've seen a lot of eating disorders. I've seen a lot of hate come out of it. It's like, oh, if you don't follow one type of diet dogma, then you don't care about your health, or you don't care about the planet, or all these stories. And I think we're all just human trying to do the best we can. And again, there are no ideal diet types for anyone. Everyone has to listen to their own bio individuality, get the lab test done and see what's working for you. Oftentimes I see, if someone's been following like a grain-free diet for too long, then all of a sudden they're having sleep problems, or they're deficient in magnesium or some B vitamins, because grains offer that. If someone has been vegan for too long, sometimes, it might show up as in their lab test as like, brittle bones or whatever. Like everyone has a different thing. And I think we just need to understand that we are not our food choices, that's not solely our identity. We are so many more things, we're actual humans. We are mothers, sisters, wives, partners, we're just so much more than a label.
Indeed, we are. And I think when we label ourselves, the thing that we do is constrain ourselves and feel that then we have a box and it's who we are and we can't move away from it. And that can be quite dangerous. And I think that's something easy to do that we probably do all the time in different areas, in work, in our hobbies, in how we treat our bodies. And it really just stops us from evolving. If you enjoy Going Conscious, please subscribe for a new episode every Wednesday. If you think your friends and networks would benefit from listening, please share this podcast of fulfillment and freedom with them. And if you listen on Apple Podcasts, please rate and review. It's great to read what you think, and your support makes a big difference. Together, let's grow our courage and tools to transform and live the lives we really want to. As well as creating Going Conscious, I work as a transformation coach and conscious brand consultant. I'm on a mission to help holistically maximize conscious entrepreneurs to drive positive changes for themselves, others, and the planet. I can help you to transition and level up personally, and I can help your brand grow and make a bigger impact. To connect with me and find out more about how we can work together, find me on Instagram @NikkiTrott or on my website nikkitrott.com. Please get in touch. I'd love to hear from you, and let's talk about your path of growth and development. But I wanted to ask you, with Moon Cycle Nutrition, your private practice, I know you work with women with fertility and pregnancy and postpartum care. So I'd love to hear a bit about that and why you chose in the first place to focus on women and their babies.
So, I like to say Moon Cycle Nutrition is a conscious evolution practice, and it's a practice from when a preteen, a tween, to all the way to perimenopause. I'm getting into more menopausal work now too, and it's really the evolution of a person in their menstrual cycle years. And I got into it by, I've always wanted to be a pediatric doctor. And so when I decided that I'll be a nutritionist, I was like, oh, I'll be a pediatric nutritionist. And then when I started realizing that today, like the modern day children are born with so many health issues, or they're born, even if they're born healthy, but then later on they develop food allergies, or they're just born with all of these markers for autoimmune conditions. And it really had me digging deep. Why are our children so much more sicker today than they were 100, 150 years ago? And so it really made me look into the nutrition, obviously, but it made me look into prenatal nutrition as well. And I started realizing that fertility really, really matters, and what that preconception phase really matters, but also just that whole 9 months of pregnancy and how the birthing person feeds themselves and what they're exposed to. But then when I started working in that space, I came up with so many people who were having fertility challenges, and I was like, whoa, why are like 1 in 8 couples struggling with fertility? Like, what is going on? Because like biologically we're made to just keep procreating, right? Like, and have babies. So why are so many people struggling? And I just had so many aha and spiritual moments in asking those questions. Like, one, girls are put on birth control way too young, and 60%, at least 60% of birth control use is for symptom management and not truly for birth control. And when you look at symptom management, like painful periods and mood swings, I'm like, well, food can change that. Lifestyle can change that. Meditation can change that. We don't need to be on birth control where we're suppressing our fertility. And then all of a sudden, we're on birth control for 20 years and then we want to get pregnant, and pregnancy becomes really difficult. And that's just one of the reasons why there are fertility struggles. There's so many reasons, and I'm sympathetic to all of them. But that is when I started realizing how birth control was being used. And we're basically losing that connection to ourselves, it really made me want to work in period health and period empowerment and working with women, again, reclaiming their bodies and their hormonal health, but in more natural means. And I'm not anti-birth control, because actually there are some really good use cases for birth control for an actual prevention of pregnancy, but also in certain health conditions that birth control can be really, really useful. But I'm just talking for the general population and in like majority, especially when a girl is just starting to have her period at ages of 10, 11, 12. She should be taught more about her body and the way her body works and what foods she should be eating to support her body, instead of just, again, numbing it out with a pill and then here you don't have to think about it, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. It really separates us, doesn't it, from that whole experience. And I definitely experienced that because I was 16 when my periods probably started, which was pretty late compared to my friends. And then I was 16 when I started the pill. And
Mhm.
I was on the pill for 10 years. And then I was on the hormonal coil for 7
Mhm.
until I realized that, I think it was probably 1 to 2 years before I took it out last summer, the coil, that I had been thinking, I have no idea about my cycle. I don't know what my cycle is and what it's like. I don't know how long it is, what it feels like, how it affects me. And I was hearing more and more from conscious women about how they run their business based on their cycle, how they
Mhm.
have 2 weeks where they socialize and 2 weeks where they don't,
Mhm.
how they have, the connection with the moon and how that helps them, and how they process their blood, and just so many things that were alien to me. And I thought, how old was I there? I think, I was 30, 31, and I was thinking, I've never known my cycle. I don't feel
Mhm.
like I know what it truly is to be a woman. And actually, the amazing thing was I then one day just started bleeding. And I went to the
Mhm.
doctor and he said he couldn't work out what was going on and why. And the coil seemed fine. And I said, please just take it out. My body was
Mhm.
really telling me it's time to
Mhm.
connect. And,
Mhm.
it's been less than a year since I took it out. So I haven't even, I felt, had time for my body to settle in to a real pattern. But every month I've learned more about myself. And again, I'm also definitely not anti-birth control.
Mhm.
But it was just interesting to realize that I had never experienced the cycle, but also I had no education about it. Like what we learn
Mhm.
about at school was very much about, maybe it's a bit of an inconvenience, and buy these products to get rid of it discreetly and don't worry about it, and you can still do the things you love during that time. It wasn't all negative, but it was nothing about how to use your cycle to empower you.
Mhm. Yeah, and your cycle shouldn't be all those horrible things that the media portrays, or even in sex ed they portray. Like your period actually shouldn't be painful, and your period, you shouldn't be having extreme mood swings. And if you are experiencing those things, it's a sign that something's out of imbalance in your body, right? Your period is your fifth vital sign. So vital sign is like, when you go to the doctor's office, they take your temperature, your heart rate, your pulse. Well, your doctor should be checking on your period and asking very pointed questions, because your period is also linked to your heart health. It's linked to your brain health, like Alzheimer's. It's linked to gut health. So many aspects of your body. And so if you're having extremely painful periods, that could be an indication of like endometriosis or fibroids. But if you're numb to that, then, or you accept that that is normal, then you're just suffering and you're living a life less optimally, right? And we have normalized women's discomforts and normalized women's pain. And it really starts with shaming and hiding our periods. And so, yes, I'm all about period empowerment. And I think the healthier cycles we have, the healthier babies we will have. And even if motherhood is not a path for you or something you want, it's still an indication of what your menopausal years will look like. So, taking care of your cycle now will ensure that you have a healthier menopause also, because every person with a uterus will go through menopause. And so we really have to start at the root.
Yes, it makes so much sense. And absolutely, gosh, that normalization of women's discomfort and pain. How do we start to take care of our cycle then?
Really take care of our nutrition. I may sound like a biased person because I'm a nutritionist, but really just we have to feed ourselves well. I say eat 9 cups of vegetables a day. And when I say that, people look at me like you're insane. And I'm just, well, it's really not a lot, because if you take like a cup of raw spinach and you cook it down, it becomes less than it becomes like 2 tablespoons. So it's not a whole lot. When you start cooking in the beginning, it might seem daunting, but start with like aim for 3 cups of vegetables, then aim for like 5 cups, 7 cups, and then you'll get to that 9 cups, and I promise you, your gut will feel so happy. You'll have those healthy poops. You'll start balancing out your hormones, and that is so key. I say at least 70% of your plate should be at least plant based. And when I say plant based, really coming from the vegetables, and then maybe the lentils and the beans and the whole grains, but really just focusing on more vegetables and organic. Also, that really matters with our hormonal health, because the pesticides that they spray on conventional foods, that they have what's called xenoestrogens, and that really messes up our hormones. It can elevate our estrogen. It mimics estrogen. It can mess up our testosterone too, and our cortisol, and really impair our liver health. So choosing organic as much as possible. And you can go on the ewg.org's Dirty Dozen list to see which top 12 vegetables and fruits to avoid if they're not organic. And then other things that you can do is really start cycle tracking. So you could download an app. There's so many out there. Download one and start tracking your cycle and start noticing patterns. And if you notice something that's off, then really just start having conversations with your doctor and looking into why. Always ask why. Don't settle for just because, especially if you have painful periods or your PMS. Symptoms last for more than 3 days or 4 days. We shouldn't be walking around with tender sore boobs and excessive bloating and mood fluctuation. A little bit, that's okay. It's normal to feel more inwards and quiet closer to a period, but there's that extremeness I'm talking about, where you're just like, you're happy, then you're sad, or you're too sad to even get out of bed, or you're anxious and it's affecting your relationships as well. And then signs to look for, like your blood should be bright red, and no clots, and minimal spotting before and after, like maybe 1 day of spotting and 1 day of spotting before and after, but not more than that, because that can mean that you don't have enough progesterone or your estrogen might be too high. And so those are just some ways. And then lifestyle, really honoring your cycle. So listen in again. There are going to be times in your cycle where you're going to be like, oh, I'm going to just ask for a raise, and I'm going to go on that date, and I'm going to try a new workout routine. And then there are going to be days in your cycle, usually the latter half, where like, I'm just going to chill, read a good book, not work out, and be okay with that, and eat a little bit more, because during closer to our period in our luteal phase, metabolically, we need 300 more calories. And so we naturally feel hungrier. So those are just all signs in ways we can take care of our hormones and our periods.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Nimisha, what does personal success look like to you, and how has this changed since the earlier days of your career?
So personal success before success just meant one thing: money, being on ahead of the game on everything, that's what success looked like to me. Now, personally, it's just, for me, it's just, did I help someone? Did I do something nice for someone every single day? Did I take care of myself and my family? Those, what really is what personal success for is, and making sure that all our needs are taken care of without too much stress and strain. It's not necessarily a financial goal, but more of a contentment goal.
Yeah, absolutely. A big shift from money and being ahead to helping and taking care of yourself and your family.
Yes.
Beautiful. And is there a key takeaway or message from our conversation today that you'd like to share?
Nikki, I thought our conversation was going to go one way and it totally went another way, which is so great. I love that. I guess we talked a lot about intuition, clearing up space in our bodies. So my key takeaway is really sit down with yourself, get quiet, and ask your body, what does he or she need, and how can you serve your body from a place of loving acceptance. And the tiny habits will make all the difference.
Amazing. Thank you. I love that. The tiny habits make all the difference. So important when it can feel so daunting to completely change everything that we're doing and always have done. And I love that you remind us it's about one habit at a time, step by step. Is there a book that you've read recently and loved that you can recommend to us, or any favorite book of yours?
Oh, yes. I love recommending one of my favorite books. It's called Yoni Shakti, A Woman's Guide to Power and Freedom Through Yoga and Tantra. And it's by Dr. Uma Dinsmore Tooley, who has been one of my teachers and guides. And this book is just really great because she talks about the power of our yoni and different exercises or different yoga poses we can do to actually strengthen our body and our connection with the higher source. And so I really, really love this book.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And lastly, Nimisha, where is the best place for listeners to find you online?
Yes, so my website is mooncyclenutrition.com, and it is a virtual practice so I can see people all around the world. And my Instagram is at Mooncycle Nutrition. I'm pretty active there. My DMs are open. And if you go onto my link tree from via my Instagram, you could even download a nutritionist guide to balancing hormones. And then I'm recently new to TikTok, and I'm starting to do quick videos about period health and hormone health. So again, the handle is Mooncycle Nutrition. And on Clubhouse, I'm there as well, at least once a week. And my handle is Nimisha, and I have a pretty nice club called Mooncycle.
Amazing. Thank you so much. It's been amazing having you. I've loved our conversation.
Thank you, Nikki. It's always a joy to talk to you.
I hope you enjoyed this episode with the lovely Nimisha. Nimisha's story of finding her own path and not taking the expected road is an inspiring illustration of the growth and purpose we can uncover when we follow our passion. It's not always easy and requires real trust in yourself, shedding societal norms and expectations, but it leads to a far richer and more fulfilling life. Now Nimisha empowers many women with their health, fertility, and ability to heal themselves. How different would the world be if our sick care system was a wellness care system? Considering this shift already empowers us to start to take our health more into our own hands. I hope you found the conversation inspiring. I love how Nimisha mentions the importance of changing tiny habits. It can be incredibly overwhelming when we look at everything we want to change and we learn more and more about what's toxic in our environment, foods, and habits. Nimisha reminds us that we can take our health into our own hands with tiny changes, one by one, which lead to the big shift we want and feel over time. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe now. And if you're on Apple Podcasts, please leave a 5-star rating and short review. If you think people you know might benefit from listening to Going Conscious, please share it with them. I know I get much of my inspiration from podcasts which are shared with me. For all episodes, our library and more, visit goingconscious.com. Your support to spread this positive message of fulfillment and freedom means so much. As well as hosting Going Conscious, I help conscious entrepreneurs to transition and unleash their power and purpose with my transformation coaching and conscious brand consulting work. Discover more on Instagram at Nikki Trott or on my website, nikkitrott.com. I'd love to hear from you and to talk about your goals, questions, or how we can work together. And if I don't hear from you before then, see you next Wednesday on the next episode of Going Conscious. As always, live your freedom.